Welcome to Time to Teach with Tammy, the podcast that gives tips, advice, and suggestions to teachers by a real teacher. So sit back and enjoy. And oh yeah, don't forget to subscribe. And we're back. Welcome to episode 58 of Time to Teach, entitled Being a Leader. So today's episode is all about that topic, being a leader, and just a few tips that I have. Again, I'm not an expert in anything. I think this is my 5th year going into being the grade level leader at my grade level. So as I was kind of thinking, this year we will have 3 new teachers on the team, and just kind of thinking about, preparation of getting ready to help those teachers on the team, I thought that might make an excellent topic for an episode, because you guys know that, well, if you've been listening, that a lot of what I talk about is just content that is just kind of coming up in my normal life. So yeah, that's where I get a lot of my content ideas, just things that come up naturally from school or issues that I'm dealing with. And I know that there are many of you out there who maybe are taking on a leadership position, or maybe find yourself already in a leadership position. And so that's what I'm just going to discuss today, is just some of the things that I try to do as the grade level leader. Not saying I am the best grade level leader out there, but I do strive to do my best in everything that I do. So of course that includes being grade level leader. So yeah, I just want to talk about a few things that I think is really important when you are in a similar position, or really any kind of leadership position. So that's what we'll talk about today. Okay, so these tips that I have for you, they're not necessarily in order of what is the most important thing. They're just kind of listed in order of, as I was thinking about the things that I feel are important to me and how I work with my team. So just know that it's not like number 1 is the most important. All of these aspects are probably equally important, and this is not an exhaustive list. These are just a few things that I have for you. So let's get started. Okay, number 1 that I have is be a listener. I think that sounds so basic and intuitive, and probably something that we really know, but I think there's really a difference between knowing and practicing something. So we may know that it's important to be a listener, especially in a leadership position, but practicing it can be slightly more challenging. So if you are new to being in a leadership position and you're just find that you're just now coming into a position like this, I think what you're going to find is, especially on like a team, and there's 5 of us all together, so 4 other teachers aside for me, you're going to have teachers that come to you with different issues. And it's really important to try to understand, be a listener and understand, number 1, what is the real issue because sometimes people will come to you in a somewhat emotional state. Not always. I mean, and I find that's not even the typical thing, but just realizing that there are human emotions involved to the issues that they're bringing to you. And those human emotions are obviously being experienced through their perspective, through their lens, which of course is affected by their whole life experience and knowledge and everything. So it's really important to understand what the issue is, why it's an issue and important to them, and try to shed your own personal beliefs for a minute. And the reason why I say this is because sometimes something is going to be super important to a team member that you may think, oh, that's not really such a big deal. But I think it's really important not to just disregard somebody's issue just because you don't think it's a big deal. I think this is going to be key in leadership, is that you realize that, the things that are important to you maybe are not as important to other people, or what's an issue to you is not necessarily an issue to someone else, and vice versa. So being a listener means really kind of shedding your own prejudices, biases, what you deem is the most important, and try to understand it from the perspective that this person is coming at you. That way you can best understand the situation without making an immediate judgment call. You will have to make a judgment call. That's part of being in leadership, even if it's just a judgment in how do I work with this now. There will be judgment that has to come in. And I don't mean necessarily judgment on, oh, well, that's good enough or bad enough or an issue enough. That's not what I mean. I mean, you will have to make a judgment on what are the next steps, what is appropriate, what's not. Is this an issue that's affecting the whole team? There's so many different decisions that are involved with this. So yeah, just kind of listening, being that listener to understand what is the real issue here, but then understanding when someone's coming to you, they're typically expecting action on your part. And sometimes you have to kind of filter through what they're saying so you can understand, what is it that they need from me? What is it that I can do for them? So being a listener in that respect. So that would be one of the factors I would say in being a leader, is being a listener. Okay. Number 2 on the list, be responsive. This is so important. Be responsive, and I would say in a very timely manner, because again, as I said with point 1, people are coming to you. If you're in a position like me, it's your team members, and they don't want, like, we all understand that, of course, we're all busy teaching, so you're working within schedules, and I think no one is going to be judgmental about that. But you don't want to put something off for several days. You want to respond to the person as soon as your schedule permits you. And I just think that's one of the things, when you take on a leadership position, you have to be willing to do that. And your team members or whoever you're working with absolutely deserve that. They don't deserve to be put off. Sometimes it is difficult. I'm not going to lie, because obviously, like in my position where I'm doing this in addition to my regular teaching, I have to make sure that whenever I have my next break, which typically my break is going to be when my kids have their hour of Spanish, then that's going to be time, either that or when my kids are in activities, that I need to make sure that I'm responding to any teachers. And a lot of times my teachers will approach me via email. Sometimes if there's a very big issue going on, they might come in and approach me personally in person so that they can really explain the situation. But more times than not, it's via email. So I make sure that I check my email, and not just for that, but also because parents are emailing me. I get several, typically on a normal day, I'm getting several emails from parents, just to inform me of this or that, whatever. And so I think it's very important that I'm checking my email regularly and I'm responding regularly. So be responsive. And when I say be responsive, respond to what they're saying to you, but then be responsive in whatever action is needed. So sometimes this is not going to be very immediate. I know I've had several times where a team member comes to me with an issue or a concern or maybe even a request, just trying to get something. And I'm always very honest that if I don't know the answer immediately, I will tell my team member, I don't know, but let me work on this. Let me talk to the appropriate person. Let me investigate and find out. And then I have to do that action. Again, you don't wait on that action. You really go forth as soon as your schedule permits you to investigate whatever it is you need to investigate. And then once you've done that, that is an action in itself. Report back as soon as you have more information, because you want your team or whoever you're working with to know that you're actively working on this, right? So you don't want to be silent on this and have them think, is she, doing what she asked? Definitely be in contact. If you're waiting on an answer, let the person or persons know. And then whatever results come from that, let the person or persons know. You basically don't want to put things off, because that's not helpful for anyone. It's not helpful for your team. It's not helpful for you, because you still have this thing, being whatever it is you need to do. You still have that you need to do. So, you do it, and you do it as immediately as you can. Now, obviously, in the life of a teacher, probably the life of any profession, you have priorities. So, of course, you're still working within the priorities. Maybe there is something else pressing. Maybe you have this super important parent meeting that you have to prep for and get yourself ready, and that's going to be priority one over this. It just kind of depends on what the issue is. And that's totally fine. I think people are very understanding. They totally get that. We're living in the same world, right? So we know that when it comes, there's certain things that have to be done at a certain time. I don't think anyone judges about that, but it's just making sure that you're not putting things off, that you're actually getting to them, making your team a priority, or whatever it is, and responding and acting as soon as you can. Okay, point number 3. This is very similar to point number 2. Do what you can. So I know I kind of mentioned that with point number 2, be responsive and act. But this is going to take it just a little bit deeper than that. Really do what you can. So by this, what I'm meaning is you don't want to try to shove something off. And this is totally different from getting team members to help where they can, because I do believe that when you work on a team, even if you are in a leadership position, that being in a leadership position does not necessarily mean you do everything yourself. That's just pretty impossible, impractical, and probably not healthy if you're putting that expectation on yourself. And I say that because my first year as grade level leader, I was kind of feeling like I needed to do everything myself. But then I realized, no, that's what a team is for. You can divvy up. You all can, partake in the tasks that need to be done if it is a task that's meant as something like that. There are certain tasks that are meant just for grade level leaders, and then you would not divvy that up. But so many things are meant to be shared tasks among the team, so do it. So this is different when I'm talking about. I mean, really putting your best foot forward and doing everything possible that you can to help in whatever situation. So this might not even be that someone has come to you. It really takes looking forward and kind of preconceiving what things are going to be needed and acting on those. I'll give you an example. Like I just mentioned at the beginning of today's episode, I am, this year is going to be very interesting because I have almost a brand new team. I only have one person who has been on our team for the last several years. I'm getting 3 brand new team members. So I know the things, I can preconceive what's going to be needed. In many cases, there will be personal things and questions that maybe I don't preconceive, but I'm going to know what their issues are. I know that they're not necessarily familiar with the curriculum. I know that they're going to need help with figuring out the way that they can kind of schedule their there are things that I can preconceive. So I want to be proactive and help them in those areas that I already know might be a stumbling block, or not necessarily a stumbling block, but just something they're going to need a little more assistance. So I want to be proactive. I don't have to wait for them to come to me, although they're, welcome to come to me for anything at any time. But there are things that I want to be proactive, and I want to go to them and kind of equip them with things that I know they're going to need to be equipped with. So that's what I mean when I say do what you can. So I think that's kind of understood, and be responsive and act, but really seriously doing every single thing that you can, and even before you're asked. And I know some of you listening might say, well, I'm not going to know everything before I'm asked. And I get that, right? We don't read minds. There, like I said, there will be individual things that come up that may be, I know for me, a lot of things I do forget to mention because, number one, there's so many new details. Our teachers are dealing with not just a new school, but a brand new country for them. They're coming from whatever their country of origin is. Many of our teachers, we get the majority of them from the United States and Canada, but other countries as well. Anyway, so they're coming here for the first time, many of them. Some of them maybe have experienced an international teaching position before in Mexico, but for the most part, this is all new. So everything is brand new, if you can imagine that. That's a difficult transition. So, there will be unique things to them in their situation, but then there will be things that, if you can preconceive that, if I give them this tidbit of information, or I share this tool or this advice, it's going to empower them and make things easier. So you want to make sure you're doing that. Don't be the person who just has nothing to offer unless someone comes to you. Be the person who can equip and help, not in an overbearing way. I don't mean that, but just, really thinking about what is going to be needed, what can I do, and doing that. Okay, so my next item number 4, is be a mediator. I think this is hugely important, you guys, and definitely something that I felt I've had to do, especially working on a team. It's so interesting, I think, kind of if you think about grade level teams, sometimes it can feel like it's us versus them. And I absolutely don't think we have that dynamic at my school. I really think we work so well together, but there can be incidents where, you maybe feel like there's a clash between grade levels, or there's even a clash on the grade level. There's whenever you're dealing with humans, there are going to be issues that arise. I think that's going to happen, and that's fine, right? I don't think we should try to pretend that conflicts and issues don't arise. We just have to really work with those issues as healthy of a manner and in a respectful manner. Because a lot of times, really, your growth might actually come out of some kind of opposition that's happening. And I also think that oftentimes great growth comes out of it, like really just great growth, and maybe your school will even start going into a different direction and just become even better because of certain tensions. And I mean, like, in a healthy way, that maybe, it's something's not working, and you start piloting something, and you're piloting because it's coming out of an area of need. There's always areas of need. So basically what I'm trying to say in a roundabout way is, I think we often feel pressure to say that everything is 100% great and grand. There's no issues. And I don't think that's realistic. And I don't think we should expect it either. That's human. And it's okay. That's going to happen. We just have to respect the differences and work with them in the most respectful manner that we can. So, boy, that was a long explanation. So, getting into being a mediator, when you're in a position, in a leadership position, you will find yourself oftentimes in an issue where maybe somebody needs something, or wants something, or is requesting something, or thinks something should be a certain way that other people don't, or certain people do, and there's maybe a divide. Maybe it's not a divide, maybe it's just whatever issues are going on, because those, there's a myriad of issues that can happen. So you're going to find yourself trying to work with different opinions and ideas. So when I say be a mediator, what I mean is you really want to kind of be that person who can listen to all sides, and definitely can put your opinion. It doesn't mean, sometimes I find myself with a differing opinion from my team, but I always want to be very honest. I might say, what, my entire team feels this way, but I feel this way, but I want to make sure that I'm not misrepresenting my team. I want to make sure everyone knows this is my personal belief, and I have to divide myself from what the rest of the team feels, but this is what my team feels. Sometimes it's a matter of maybe the team feels like there was an injustice to it, or there's something happening in the section that isn't healthy for the section, and that has to be brought up. Or maybe it could be a matter of maybe administration is requesting something, and other persons don't feel that this is the best move. So that's when, situations like that, where you're going to find yourself like, oh. And this is, one of those times where your decision making, and you're putting, you're judging things and how best to act. You can't just only act on how you personally feel when you have a whole team to take into account. You absolutely can't. I mean, technically you can, but that would not be right at all. I feel like when you're in a situation like that, you have to, the health of your team. And when I say health, I mean, if you go against your team, that's just not healthy. You can work with your team on the differences of opinions, but you definitely have to keep in mind, not. I think it's so important that if you're in a position where you're a grade level leader, you're not just trying to put forth your own agenda. It's the agenda of your team, not yourself. So you're going to find yourself in different situations where you have to try to deal with different opinions, thoughts, and positions on issues. And you want to be a mediator by not lighting a fire, by not emotionally charging the situation, trying to bring balance and harmony while working on the solutions to whatever issue it is or to whatever problem. So you don't want to be the person who is, like if you know that your team feels strongly about something, work with them and work with whatever side, that opposition, to bring some kind of harmony and balance where everyone can be pleased. Because a lot of times things are give and take, right? You can't just all have one way. But you don't want to emotionally charge something. And I know that's very difficult because we're working in very important stuff here. We have, we're working with our future generation, and what our work really matters. It's very important. We're working with students, and what we do is life changing. So it's hard sometimes not to have that emotional aspect. And there will be emotions involved, but I'm just saying, as you're working with all these different opinions and ideas, just be a very good listener and try to relay things as you are hearing them and understanding them, and come to a solution in the most fairest and just way. Okay, you guys, that is really it. So we're going to kind of wrap up and move on to the wins and fails segment. So win for the week has to be kind of related to my fail. So I think I'm going to start with my fail for the week. Fail for the week is as I went to do my final editing on the show, get it ready for publishing, I discovered that the audio was not okay. About 5-ish minutes in, the audio went a little bit crazy and my voice was very deep. I sounded like a man. And so I had to fix that. And then the ending of the show was completely gone. I don't know what happened to it. So, I had to kind of finish recording that. So that was kind of a fail. But the win that's connected to that is I actually was able to save the audio. I thought I was going to have to re-record the episode over again. I thought it was no good. I played around with it and I was able to change the pitch within the audio, so I actually sound like me. So that was definitely a win because I did not know how to do that. I really thought I would be spending the afternoon recording the whole episode again, so I feel really good about that. Kind of learned something new. I think that's probably a handy tool to have, especially when you're doing podcasts. Okay, that's it, you guys. There is a part 2 coming up. It's actually going to be episode 60. So there will be an episode in a week. And then following that, we will get the part 2 version of being a leader. Anyway, I do appreciate you joining me. Thank you so much. If you would like to share your thoughts on being a leader, or if you have some of your own thoughts on that. Other tips that maybe I did not include that you would add to this list, go ahead and tweet to me. I'd love to hear from you. You can reach me on Twitter. My handle is at TammyJ123. So that's it, you guys. It is a wrap. Until next time.
Wait a minute. Wait 1 minute. Before you go, don't forget you can catch our show notes online at www.timetoteach.libsyn. That's libsyn.com. We're also on Facebook at Time to Teach. Don't forget to check out our Facebook group, Teachers for Effective Curriculum. And if you're an educator with your own podcast show, I invite you to join our brand new Facebook group, Teachers Who Podcast. Let's grow a community where we can network, problem solve, and discuss anything and everything podcast related. I'll see you there.